I saw it as a thought partner where we could collaborate and ideate with it, including strategy. I saw it also as one that can analyze a lot of data and get some deep market insights that will help inform strategic decisions and help us with personalization, help us with automation. So when we think about it from that perspective, this is now not just a tactical tool to make our work more efficient. It now becomes something that will also make us a lot more effective and innovative in our roles.
Mike's got the hat, the AI kind. Unlocking power in business you'll find. Cut through the hype, explore the tech. Every week, new ideas to check. All 10 leads us on a digital quest. AI secrets he'll always invest. Tune in tight, don't miss a beat. Knowledge groove, keep you on your feet. Listen up to the AI flow. Business growth, here we go. Cutting edge insights, that's the plan. With the AI hat, you'll understand.
Greetings, program. Welcome back to the AI Hat Podcast, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at harnessing the power of AI across all areas of business, from streamlining operations and boosting productivity to gaining a competitive edge and driving explosive growth. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to be shown how to prepare yourself and your brand for this AI revolution and come out ahead. Now, what if your next star employee never needed a coffee break, could work 24/7, and actually made your human team more creative and productive? That's not science fiction. It's the reality of a properly implemented AI in today's business environment. But here's the challenge. Most business leaders either overthink AI integration, making it more complicated than necessary, or underutilize it, missing out on incredible opportunities for growth and efficiency. The truth is, many businesses are struggling to find that sweet spot between leveraging AI's capabilities and maintaining that crucial human element that makes their brand unique. They're either going all in without a strategy or staying on the sidelines out of fear. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Liza Adams. Liza is a pioneering force in helping businesses successfully integrate AI solutions while keeping human values at the forefront. As a seasoned executive who's worn multiple hats, including VP and CMO, she's helped countless businesses transform their operations through strategic AI implementation. Her human-centered approach to technology has made her one of the most sought-after voices in the AI implementation space. Hey, Liza, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. What an introduction. I'm so humbled. Thank you for having me here.
Like I tell folks all the time, you did all the work to earn whatever accolades I'm able to come up with. So thank you. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us. I want to start with your journey. What first convinced you that AI could be more than just a tool, but actually function as a valuable team member?
Yeah, so my journey was a little bit unintentional. People think about me as an AI expert, but I don't consider myself an AI expert. I have passions in several areas that happen to be elevated by AI because AI is an amplifier. It's an accelerator. So I'm deeply passionate about elevating the strategic value of go-to-market leaders and marketing in particular. I'm passionate about getting diverse perspectives at every table and also very passionate about using business as a force for good. So, with those three passions and AI being an amplifier, I lean in on AI to elevate those things.
Fantastic. So could you share an example just to start us off with how you've seen AI transform from being just that kind of an amplifier or productivity tool and being an actual collaborative partner in a business?
Yeah, so just a little bit of a sidebar for you, Mike. About 2 years ago, I was head of marketing for a company, an ERP and CRM and e-commerce company. And I honestly thought, Mike, that it was going to be my last one because it had exceptional product market fit. It had a culture that felt like home. And I thought, I had 5 years in this company and I'm going to ride off into the sunset. But it wasn't meant to be. About a year and a half into my tenure there, we were acquired by EE. So we all turned over the executive team. And I was honestly very disheartened. And I was in a dark place and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know whether I had it in me to go back into corporate. So I started thinking, well, maybe I will pursue board service and see if I could try to get on boards because I am passionate about getting more women and women of color on
Mhm.
boards. And then I realized that there were only 41 marketers in Fortune 1000 boards and less than 3% of all board members, regardless of company size, have marketing experience. So that was equally disheartening. So I dug in deeply, Mike, on why it is that marketers are not on boards. And there are many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is that we are deemed as tacticians rather than strategists. And people see websites and blogs and events and advertisements, but they don't see the things that we do that are strategic, that deeply understand customers. We do messaging and segmentation and targeting, and we ensure product market fit. We create categories. We ensure leadership positions in those categories, but those things fall by the wayside and it gives way to the glitz and the glamour. So my exit from that company happened to coincide with the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. I saw almost immediately how this could be the gift that marketers needed to flip that script because I saw it for more than what most people were using it for. A lot of people use it to create blogs, summarize emails, summarize long reports, or even create images. I saw it as a thought partner where we could collaborate and ideate with it, including strategy. I saw it also as one that can analyze a lot of data and get some deep market insights that will help inform strategic decisions and help us with personalization, help us with automation. So when we think about it from that perspective, this is now not just a tactical tool to make our work more efficient. It now becomes something that will also make us a lot more effective and innovative in our roles.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. First, I have to say we both have this shared passion for elevating women and minorities. That's something that I've tried to use this platform and every other summit that I've ever run with the Gorbals, which is multiple. I'm very proud of being able to have folks like you come on here and show many other women and minorities. Yes, you can achieve this kind of position. You can have a voice. You can have a platform as well. But like I was saying, I couldn't agree more. Also with your use of AI, like we were talking before we started recording. We're recording this as of January. I know the episode itself isn't coming out until much later in the year, but at the time of this recording, I just spent weeks over the holidays having heart-to-heart conversations with Gemini, who I have trained to be an AI chief of staff. It understands my audience, my voice. It helps me do the research on my audience, and it helped me map out a complete new direction for what I'm doing as an AI trainer and consultant. It was truly a collaborative partner throughout all of that. And so I appreciate you bringing that up as a use case for AI. Because I know a lot of people, they're used to using AI as a generative function, right? Let's create a
Mhm.
blog post, let's create an image, that sort of thing. That might be one of the big misconceptions I think that a lot of business owners still have with AI. What are some other big misconceptions that you think folks have about AI today?
Yeah, I think another big misconception is that AI is primarily a tool rather than a teammate. And this kind of goes along with the use case around thought leadership and using it as a thought partner. I would say about 50% of the time I'm using it as a thought partner. And I think it's by and large due to the line of work that I'm in, right? So I'm helping with strategy, helping with thought leadership. I'm trying to get people to think outside the box, inspiring what's possible with AI. And when you have that kind of role in helping others, there's a lot of deep thinking that happens, right? So let me just give you an example. I have thoughts, I have lots of thoughts, but usually they're not organized. If you when they're not organized, it's very hard for others to understand. And it's hard for me to articulate my thoughts. So I might do just basic brainstorming with AI. And not many people brainstorm with AI. I would say things like, "Good morning, Claude," which is my favorite.
Yeah.
I think Claude just does such a phenomenal job of brainstorming with me, and it's not necessarily the best for everyone, but it works with my style of brainstorming. I would say something like, "Good morning, Claude. Just want to brainstorm with you today. I have some thoughts around the future of AI and humanity." I might say something like, "As I think about it, as AI democratizes IQ, then EQ becomes more valuable. And as AI democratizes content, now everybody can pretty much create a lot of content at Mach speed, then authentic human experiences become more valuable. And as AI democratizes capability, then human judgment becomes more valuable." And that was just like some of my hypotheses, right? Because I could see more and more of the tactics and the things that we do every day in our work where AI is getting better at doing of those things, but the key differentiator has been the human element, right? AI can't necessarily replicate or even simulate some of these things. It can't simulate love, it can't simulate experiences. And at the end of the day, as businesses, as marketers, as go-to-market leaders, that's how we will rise. And that's how we will differentiate ourselves from other content and other relationships that people are essentially creating. So I brainstorm with AI and it either confirms or asks me more questions. It even helps me organize my thinking so that when it's organized, I can then relay it to other people. So I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions is that AI is simply a tool where you ask it some questions and it gives you a response back, or you ask it to create something and it gives you an output back. But this whole notion of ideating with it, starting with your own ideas and then AI making it better, is such a huge value add. I think it's more than just efficiency, it's now helping us innovate and making our ideas better.
Love that. It echoes what you were saying at the outset, which is that AI is an amplifier. Now, you talked about how it amplifies even human passions. Could you elaborate on what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, human passion. So when I think about business, I love thinking about using business as a force for good. And in business, there's this huge element of trust that I think is just such a force, right? Because you can have great product market fit. You can have awesome products, but if customers don't trust you, if the market doesn't trust the company, then it's really, really hard to sell. And I think in the world of marketing and go-to-market strategy, people have had a lot of challenges, including me, of quantifying the value of brand, as an example, right? There have been studies that say that when you are trusted, when you have a good brand, that you can achieve 2 times more conversion, better conversion, or you can have 50% more retention, or you will spend 5 times less on acquiring customers, which is great. And I think in the era of AI, those things are going to get amplified. And here's the reason why. And those things are typically grounded in passion, right? Whatever the company's passion is, all companies hopefully have a soul. It's not just about making money. It could be about sustainability. It could be about reducing waste, or it could be about changing the way people work and live. There's something that a company should be passionate about. And AI is acting like a megaphone. It will essentially amplify that passion and it will amplify the amount of trust. So if the market doesn't trust you, if you have bad reviews out there, if you have bad employee feedback, nasty social engagement. AI, when somebody says, tell me about XYZ company, that will all come back and it will reflect the business and what it's not just about what you say as a company, it's what other people say about you as a company. Let me give you a really tangible example. About a month ago, right before the holidays, I got a LinkedIn message from a directory company, basically propping me up, saying, hey, you're doing great work. We'd love to include you in a who's who list, a directory of some sort. And what I did was I screenshotted the message and I put it into Perplexity, which is my search AI of choice. And I said, Perplexity, I just got this LinkedIn message inviting me to be a part of a directory. Tell me about this company. I'm not familiar with this company. Is this company reputable? And do you believe that I should think about engaging with this company? And it essentially came back saying that the company was not reputable, that it had 13 complaints to the Better Business
Oh
Bureau
my God.
over the last 3 years, and that there were also very bad employee reviews of the company. So I know that I need to check AI's responses, but at the end of all of that, it helped me form an opinion about this company without me having to talk to a sales rep or doing any more searches. So I think in the world of AI, that forming of an opinion, that trust element is now elevated and it can speed up the decision, whether the decision is to do more business with the company or to not. So again, it accelerates decision making, it accelerates and puts an amplifier on the passion. So in the past, people would say perception is reality. I think in the AI world, the AI response becomes reality. It helps us form an opinion, good or bad, about the business.
100% agree. That's a fantastic example. I love that little story. Great way to exemplify not only how to use AI, but some of the stuff that's going on out there that AI can help us surface and realize, oh, that's not really something we should be thinking about. So, if a business owner who's listening is sold on the idea of using AI as this collaborative partner rather than just turning it to churn out an email or two or something like that, how do you recommend that they get started using it in that way, changing their mindset or whatever it is that your approach might be?
Yeah, I what I really like about working with AI is I can start with context because AI doesn't have our context, right? It doesn't have our world, it doesn't understand our challenges, it doesn't understand what we want to achieve, and it doesn't understand our passions. So when we ask it a simple question like, "Oh, help me write a blog," or "Help me understand challenges of a small business," it will simply give you the response that is an aggregate or an average of the 85% of the internet that it's trained on. But when we give it context, so what I like to think about is, let's say you hire a consultant or you hire a really smart new employee, they walk into your door on day one, they have very little that they can go by in terms of understanding your business. So start with giving them context. Start with helping them understand what your business is all about, what your objectives are, what what are some of the challenges? Who do you target? Why do they buy from you? And then give them a persona. So, okay, let me give you this context. Oh, and by the way, you are now our sales leader and your goals are XYZ over the next 6 to 12 months. And given that context, then you can share your challenges and ask it some questions and banter with it. And what I really like to do is I would say things like, given that context, my plan is to go after a new market segment. Rather than just selling to small businesses, I'm also thinking about selling to larger businesses in X vertical because they have fairly similar requirements. What do you think of that strategy given what I've given you? So it will give you a response, right? So let's just say that I'm working with ChatGPT, gives me a response. What I also really like to do is I would take that response in that context and I will give it to Claude. And
Mm,
I'll basically say, Claude, here's what ChatGPT said based on this context. What do you think? Do you have any other ideas? And assess ChatGPT's response, pros, cons, what might it have, what was missed. And then I might even go to Gemini or a third opinion about it, right? And then you cut and paste. All I do is I cut and paste responses and see where I might find convergence, where they all agree and they're really recommending something very different, and then where I might find some differences of opinion. And I, the other benefit of that, well, the benefit is it feels like you have three more strategists working with you rather than just one
yeah.
perspective, right? The other benefit of that is it also helps you mitigate hallucinations. So if you're working with one and it happens to be hallucinating, hopefully the other two or the other one will catch that hallucination and you'll have a better response. So that's how I use it.
Love it. What you're talking about is using a prompt framework. And for folks listening, if you haven't really tried extensive prompting or used frameworks, I have talked about a bunch of different ones, but I'll link to the Rice framework in the show notes. I think that'll be the easiest for you to get started. It's not the kind of tool that you have to use every single time you're talking to AI. But if this is your first time really getting into conversing with AI in this way, it's a great way to help you remember, oh, yeah, I need to give it a role. Oh, yeah, I need to give it some context. Oh, I should probably give it some examples too. And then you can go beyond that and eventually build custom instructions. Like I've got an AI chief of staff who already understands my audience, my voice, my challenges, my goals for my business. So I can just jump into a conversation with that AI chief of staff, and it already knows who I am, it knows who it is, and its role in the organization. But folks, we're talking with Liza Adams about the key tenets you as business owners will want to keep in mind as you integrate AI into your tools and processes. And I've got several more questions you're not going to want to miss. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of AI for Business Leaders, the AI Hat podcast, is brought to you by Magi. Tired of juggling multiple AI subscriptions and trying to figure out which tool to use and when? Magi simplifies AI for businesses by offering access to all the leading language models and image and video generators for one low price. With Magi, you can create custom instructions to personalize AI for every business need and use them across all LLMs, including ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and even DeepSeek. No more building custom GPTs or gems that are limited to just one platform. Magi also lets you create customized workspaces for your entire team, giving everyone in your organization access to the same AI assistants and tools and prompts. Ready to streamline your AI workflow and empower your team? Tap the link in the show notes to visit Magi today to learn more. And now, back to the rest of today's episode. So, Lisa, other than someone just raising their hand and saying, yes, we're ready to do this, what do you think some of the key indicators might be that a business or organization is truly ready to start elevating their use of AI to this kind of collaborative partnership level?
Yeah. There are I know we've talked a lot about using AI for collaboration, right? So I think it's really great use case for strategy, any kind of analytics. You've got data, have AI analyze that data and have it extract some key takeaways and key insights, especially if you have a lot of data. It's really hard for human beings to process a lot of data. So one of the superpowers of AI is that it can do that fairly quickly and it can identify things that we may not see initially. So I think analysis and using AI as a thought partner for strategy is an exceptional use case. So that's one area where I think businesses of all sizes can use AI. The other area that I use AI a lot for is in process and thinking automation. So, not everyone is a strategist, not everyone thinks the same way I do, but I want to democratize that, meaning that I want to share that process with my team so that we can continuously use the same process. And so I use custom GPTs and I train those custom GPTs with my thinking so that others can actually use that same process. So, for example, I have a custom GPT that helps companies, helps teams identify the top market segments that best meets their needs based on their selection criteria. And that selection criteria could be anything from market size, market growth to fit with the product and the strength, their strength against competitors, those types of things. So we've got a custom GPT that helps us do that. Process automation might be around the creation of content or the creation of blogs, because we've got a GPT that helps us ideate, create outlines, and then ultimately write it. And then with Canvas, within ChatGPT, we're able to do some inline editing as well. So that's the second use case around process and thinking automation. I use it a lot for research. Mike, I know that you're a big fan of Gemini, and I am
Yeah.
now also a big fan of Gemini Advanced with its deep research capabilities, because it literally is an agent, right? You have a topic and you want some research that supports key insights and you want some data within minutes. It gathers all that information, sources the information, but I think we need to be super careful about prompting it. As Christopher Penn says, we need to make it focus, because if we don't make it focus, it will literally look for everything out there related to the topic. But we might want to restrict it to the most recent studies or the most recent reports, the most credible ones. We may want to not allow for social media content to be infused in that research data. So I use Gemini and Perplexity for research. And I spoke about Perplexity. I use it for search, because unlike Google, traditional Google, with Perplexity, it gives us more automatic responses and cited responses based on our search. So I think that's a really good use case. And then I got four other use cases. I use Claude for interactive models. Like if I want to create a calculator for figuring out brand value, dashboards, interactive dashboards. And I'm not a Python developer. I'm not a software developer. I can't code. So I love using AI because, as they say now, the most powerful coding language is English. And that's what I know. I code using natural language. And in fact, one of my best interactive models that I've done is for personal purposes. Over the holidays, I created this holiday emoji Jeopardy game for our holiday party were questions. Let's say the category was holiday songs. I would put up an emoji of I saw Santa kissing Santa Claus. So an I and then a saw, the tool of saw,
Huh?
grandma, mom, and Santa Claus, and lips, right? And then people would say, "Oh, that's I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus," and I simply used Claude to create this Jeopardy board game, and it helped me with the emojis, and it helped me with the calculations, and we had a lot of fun with that. I can't remember who said it, that AI has LLMs, large language models, but humans, we have LLMs too, and it's called little life moments. And AI happens to elevate these little life moments, because without AI, that Jeopardy game would not be as interesting nor interactive as I was able to make it. So it, again, like I mentioned previously, it amplified that little life moment for us, for me and my family. Let's see, I use it for images and video now with Sora in ChatGPT. Video capabilities there, images. I don't do a lot of images and videos, so those who are heavy users of images and video, they probably would go beyond ChatGPT. They're probably gonna go down the Midjourney route, something like that. I also do a lot of infographics and frameworks, and I tend to use Claude. Napkin is also a good one that I use
Yeah.
infographics. And then the last use case that I could think of at the top of my head is for learning. I'm a very slow reader. I've always been a slow reader since I was a child. And the way I've been able to overcome that weakness, if you want to call it a weakness, is I have become an auditory learner. So I tend to listen a lot. I listen to podcasts when I'm putting makeup on or walking the dog or driving. I listen a lot because that is how I learn. And I love Notebook LM because I could put in any kind of a long document or newsletter, and then it plays an AI podcast where there's two AI hosts that kind of banter and explain things in a very approachable way. And I think it's really just great for people with diverse learning styles. So those are like my 8 use cases. If your listeners have any one of those or a combination or all of them, I think AI used responsibly can certainly help the business.
Love those use cases. In fact, I just read this morning, again, we're recording this on January 10th, so this is old news now, but Google has released in their labs Google Daily, which is a 5 to 10 minute podcast that they create for you using AI based on your Google Discover history. So it uses what it knows about you, collects the news of the day, gives it to you as an audio podcast, very similar to how Perplexity is serving us up news topics, which I love, these curated news topics that I get every day from Perplexity. But for folks like you who are auditory learners, which many of us are, you'd be able to get that served to you as a podcast that you didn't have to do anything. It's just given to you. And then the links are there for more reading if you want. So I love that. And I so appreciate that you mentioned deep research. I'll have a link to that in the show notes below. I did an article about deep research, but you're absolutely right. It's a fantastic tool, but there are caveats. Like you mentioned, Chris Penn has said, we've got to really get it to focus. And then I was just reading Ethan Mollick talking about how it is great for surface level research. It doesn't have access to private websites, academic research and documentation, that sort of thing. So we have to be aware of it. It does have limitations as a research tool. But if we're doing business research, which is what I use it for 99% of the time, looking at competitors and the business landscape, it's terrific. It's going to look at all 50, 100, 150 websites that are out there. Tell me, what are the keywords? What are the strategies? What are the messaging? How is the price compared between one brand to another for a particular product? It's lights out fantastic. So I appreciate you sharing all of those use cases. But throughout all these things, I know a lot of people might be thinking, okay, well, that's great, but now aren't we just turning everything over to the AI? How are we maintaining human values when we're maximizing all these AI capabilities? Walk us through how you would be approaching that.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, as AI democratizes IQ, EQ rises, as AI democratizes content, authentic human experiences rise, like all these things, right? I do believe that the biggest differentiators moving forward will be the human elements that AI is going to have a very difficult time replicating, at least today. So AI continues to advance. The the part where I am super passionate about is the ethical and responsible use of AI. And when I think about ethical and responsible use, it is us literally guiding AI. So I never like to let AI run on its own. There is no human court of law that basically will allow us to say AI made that decision. That was AI's answer, or AI made me. We are ultimately accountable and responsible for the AI's response and the ultimate impact of that response. So I guide people in my work to guide AI responsibly. And that what that means is several things. Try to not to put any sensitive data in AI. Understand the limitations and capabilities of the system, and understand its privacy policies. So if you're on a free version, more than likely your information will be used to train the model. And even on some free versions, on some paid versions, you might also look at the privacy policies or training policies to make sure that you're okay with that, right? Because there are some models that do use the data that we share for training. The other thing that I guide people to do is redact, information that you put in the model. Don't put the sensitive data in there. Change the names or eliminate some of the company names or personal information before putting it into AI. Also think about checking the work. This is a big one. I've already shared the example where I use multiple AIs to help me check each other's work, because AIs do hallucinate, meaning that they do make up stuff and they make stuff up very confidently. So, regardless of how confident they sound, regardless of how many sources they cite, check that word. Oftentimes, I have found that I'm checking the source and there's nothing there. You click on the URL and there's nothing there. And even if, here's a good example, even when I do click on something, let's say it's cited a source, I click on the URL, I find the document, and then I still can't find what it's sourcing. And I'll say something like, can you tell me what page of this document that statistic is referenced? And it actually came back and said, oh, my apologies, I made a mistake. So
Oh,
be very careful on especially on research, right? And like I said, it could be very convincing. So that's another one. And then I think ultimately bias and fairness. We are still seeing a lot of bias and fairness and fairness issues in AI because they learn from humans. And us as human beings, we have biases. So we have to apply our judgment on top of that. And then last, one more. I think transparency is really important. So I do a biweekly newsletter on LinkedIn, and I turn that biweekly newsletter into an AI podcast, as I mentioned, using Notebook LM, where I basically just cut and paste my newsletter as is, put it into Notebook LM, and it spits out an AI podcast. But I'm very transparent when I share that AI podcast that these are not human hosts and that they're AI podcasters. And I say that I am doing this to ensure that I can accommodate people with diverse learning styles, just like me, who are auditory learners. So I think that level of transparency is really important as we guide and use AI.
love that. I have a very similar approach with my LinkedIn newsletter. I'm still struggling with the frequency, but my newsletter is written by AI. It's written by my assistant Clue, which based on Tron, and we very transparently say top and bottom. This was written by Clue. Clue loved this podcast with Lisa, and here's what Clue thinks about it, and so on. Although it's written in the first person, and in some additional transparency, and to underscore your point about hallucinations, Claude misrepresented your biography, didn't it? It thought you were a CTO, and it caught that when you were looking at our pre-show notes, and it missed my attention completely. And I apologize again for that. But it was just one of those funny mistakes where Claude very confidently said, "Of course, Liza Adams has been a CMO and a CTO in her history," and you were like, "No, I have not been, and probably do not ever want to be a CTO."
Was an engineer, but never a CTO.
No, no, no. So as we're almost close to time, and I want to wrap things up, but I'd love if you could share what is concerning you about the direction of AI recently, whether it's the technology itself or how people are using it? Because we're talking around some of the ways that AI can and maybe shouldn't be used. And I'm wondering if there's advancements or things that you're seeing coming out now into 2025 that you're like, oh, this is bothersome to me.
Yeah, I've heard some say if you don't get on the AI bandwagon that you will be left behind. There's some truth to that, but I am extremely empathetic now, and I'm giving myself a lot of grace. And I'm in the business, right? I make a living using AI, so I have a lot of accessibility to it. I use it all the time. But not everybody is in that same place, and I think we need to be super empathetic wherever people are in their journey. I always give this example of my husband who is a published author, and he hesitates putting his work and using AI for his writing because he fears that somebody else will be able to take his ideas and then write the next series of novels. But at the same time, he's a cancer survivor and a right leg amputee, and he embraces AI from the perspective of robotics because he does feel that it can change the way people with disabilities work and live. So even in a single person, the acceptance of AI is different by use case, right? So when I hear people say, "Hey, if you don't understand AI, you'll get left behind," I stop and pause before I judge And I think we need to help people understand AI literacy. I think is just baseline for all of us. And take whatever time that you can give it to learn it, regardless how you feel about it. And I've said this multiple times that when we are literate about AI, we can make better decisions for ourselves, our families, our businesses, and society, rather than potentially being influenced by others who may or may not hold the same values as we do. So that for me is first and foremost AI literacy, a baseline for everyone. The second thing is I do believe that AI today in its current form favors those who think in a very process oriented manner,
Yeah.
very systematic, very logical, and not everybody thinks that way, right? Like when we prompt this thing, it's like step by step and you iterate and you need to be a tinkerer, right? You got to check the work and all these things. That's a strength that not everyone has. Just like I am not an artist. I can't reimagine something like artists can, right? Not I don't expect everybody to think like I do.
Right.
Unfortunately, today, it happens to favor people who think like I do. I think as AI advances, that will become less of an issue. Just like when the iPhone first came out, like it was fairly complicated, but over time, the applications became more intuitive. We crossed the chasm, right, into from early innovators and adopters to like early majority, right? We're crossing the chasm. At some point, I think AI will advance where we don't have to prompt as well. It will understand the context, right? And today, another good example is if you go into ChatGPT, there are multiple models. There's 4.0, oh 01,
Yeah.
same thing with Gemini, and same thing with Claude, Sonnet, Opus, Haiku, and you have to pick and choose the right ones. My neighbors, the mom walking down the street, the dad mowing the lawn, how are they going to figure out which ones of those to choose, right? So at some point, I believe that AI will get easier
Yeah.
where I'm hoping we won't have to choose the model, we won't have to choose the tool, but it will know based on our inquiries the right model and the right tool to use to serve up the best response. So, although people say, hey, if you don't get on the AI bandwagon now, you'll be left behind, I think it's not as bad. The key thing is to start however much time you can give it and know that this thing will advance to meet more of us than a select few. At least that is my
Yeah, in fact, you remind me of one of my favorite novels of science fiction about AI called The Menagerie by Chris Kelly. And in the book, we've achieved AGI or even ASI, right? So we've got a self-aware AI that's tapped into every phone and listening device in the world. And so one of the things that they do to accommodate people who don't want AI listening in on every conversation is they create opt-out areas where they can go and everybody else there has dropped off their cell phones and everything. Because if it, in that kind of a world, I may have opted out, but you're standing next to me with your cell phone and you're opted in and you've allowed the AI to perceive everything around you with your glasses and your devices and everything. Well, now I'm being intruded upon it. And while that situation may not occur, I agree. We're all moving towards a space where AI is going to become easier and folks will have those kinds of options. So, Lisa, this has been such an interesting and far reaching conversation. I know people are probably just buzzing with lots more questions for you. Where can they go to reach out to you to learn more and connect?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Liza, Liza Adams. And then you can also visit my website, which is growthpath.net.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you all of you for listening. We'll have all the links as always in the show notes. And like I've told you before, if this is your first foray in the world of AI and business, I've got the perfect resource for you in the show notes below, the AI starter pack designed to help you quickly get up to speed on the terms, the tactics, and the underlying technology that's powering this AI revolution. Check it out, and I'll see you in our next episode. Welcome to the grid. That's a wrap on another episode of the AI Hat Podcast. I hope you gained some valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your business with AI. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. And don't forget to visit theaihat.com for more resources and to connect with me. Until next time, keep innovating and remember, the future of business is human and it's powered by AI.